You've seen the images, now you've seen the video, and now you have a good idea, at least from the back, what the alleged biter looks like. The man who clamped down on a healthcare protester's pinky and bit it off. And now there's the tape. Not from either of these gentlemen, either the biter or bitee, but the man who found the finger. Listen.
911 emergency, this is Debbie.
Yeah.
CHP with a transfer. Okay, can I help you?
Yes, there's been an altercation on the corner of Lynn and Hillcrest.
Is anyone hurt?
A gentleman's finger has been bitten off, and I have the finger wrapped up in a napkin, and I'm trying to find out where the gentleman went to the hospital so that we can get his finger sewn back on.
All right, now, you might recall we had Bill Rice on it, the man whose finger was bitten off. He was on. They tried to reattach the finger. They looked at doing it. Simply couldn't be done. Now, Detective Eric Busha in the Ventura County Sheriff's Department joins me on the phone. So, Sheriff, are we any closer to finding this guy?
No, unfortunately, at this point, we haven't gotten any new leads as to who this guy is. Somebody out there knows who he is, but we haven't gotten that tip.
Sheriff, what would be the punishment for something like this?
Well, potentially it's a prison felony, mandatory prison felony. It's mayhem. It's depriving another person of a body part.
And you could be in jail for how long?
Several years in prison to life in prison, depending on the circumstances and the person's criminal history. A lot of possibilities with that.
Now, Detective, when we had Bill Rice on yesterday, the man whose finger was bitten off, he freely admitted here when all of this started, he was getting upset. This guy was yelling at him, and he whacked him. He threw him a punch. Then
right.
He was throwing a follow-up punch, he said, and it was at that point when that punch or hand landed in this other guy's mouth, the guy bit off his pinky. So is there any culpability on Bill Rice's part for instigating anything?
Potentially. The problem here is just that. In the statements that he gave you and the statements that he gave us, it makes it very difficult to get a clear picture of what took place because we have so many conflicting statements from witnesses, and identifying who the primary aggressor was is critical in this kind of situation.
All right, Detective, this is what Bill Rice said again, to harken back to what I just told you, but he said it a little bit more to the point. This is from Bill Rice yesterday.
He came at me calling me an idiot, and whenever he got close within my range, I threw a punch.
Okay, so you threw a punch. Did the punch land?
Yes. Yes.
So then what happened next?
Well, I threw a second punch, and my fist ended up in his mouth.
And then he bit your pinky off, right?
He bit my pinky finger off.
Now, Detective, Bill said that he wasn't going to take any legal action. For all he knows, it could have been an accident. How do you handle something like that if it turns out that it was just that?
Well, ultimately, what we would do is submit the case to the district attorney's office and have them make a determination whether or not charges are going to be filed. But before that ever happens, we need to find out who this guy is, and we want to hear his side of the story. The biter is a key piece of the puzzle here. And without his statement, without any information about who he is, we can't further this investigation until that point.
But, Detective, when we looked at the original crowd or the photos of the crowd that was outside this town hall hearing, it was not a very large crowd. So clearly people knew. The few who were there had to know, right? So or either people covering up for this guy or they know this guy, what?
Well, it's a possibility, but there were several different organizations actually represented there, and the photograph that shows where the altercation took place was taken from across the street, and at that location where the photographer was, there were 70 to 100 people. So there were quite a few demonstrators there.
I see. So, Detective, play this out for me now. We look at this, and a lot of people say, well, you know, it was a bizarre but unusual incident. Guys like you worry about the escalation of violence at incidents, those that start with pushing and shoving to later biting and then God knows what. So you don't look at this as an isolated incident. You have to look at this as something that could potentially escalate, right?
Well, I don't know that there would necessarily be an escalation here. I mean, obviously this is surrounding an issue where there are a lot of emotions, and certainly this isn't what the Founding Fathers intended for people to do in debating things in public. But our goal here is to find out the facts of the case. We're seeking the truth, and whatever that turns out to be, because like I said, we have varying versions of what took place and who the aggressor was, ultimately the decision will be up to the courts.
But ultimately, if the courts find that this fellow, if he's the fellow, bit off deliberately Bill Rice's finger, he could be in jail for a few years at least.
He could be in some serious trouble, absolutely.
Man, oh man. Detective, thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil.
Right, the congresswoman we were talking about who can't soil herself with such meetings so as not to give those people a forum. New York Democrat Louise Slaughter actually said that. Those people, these crude folks who yell and rant and, well, they're so positively uncivil. But you know something? Try as I might, not a one of those crude folks who pointed fingers ever bit off one. Not a one picking apart a congressman ever physically removed a pinky from a congressman or anyone else. So finger him for being critical, but don't say a one has been a cannibal. Because here's the thing about town hall healthcare protesters. They bark, they don't bite. The media loves to show them barking. Could you imagine if they got video of any one of them biting? Man, that would be all over the place and front page news every place. See, these crazies really are cannibals. Now imagine my surprise then when the crazy turned out to be on the other side, their side. Then, well, they don't bite. Then they just about ignore the biter. Conveniently forget the guy who pulled a Mike Tyson on the guy who did not agree with him. Some even say the bitter ain't, or that biter ain't the problem. The guy he bit, Bill Rice, is. Bill started him. Besides, Bill's on Medicare, so Bill's a hypocrite. And now Bill's a hypocrite without a finger. My friends, that's really all you need to know about this healthcare reform debate. In the media, those for it are armed with data and digits. Those against, unarmed, and now missing digits. So it is okay to report on protesters that you think have lost their minds, but it is not okay to report when one of them loses their finger. Well, here's a finger back at you for your hypocrisy. And let's just say, it ain't a pinky.